Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has invited Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. When will the Eritrean president visit Saudi Arabia? What is the significance of this invitation? Reportedly, Eritrean government sent a delegation to Saudi Arabia. Delegation held talks, but after the meetings between the delegation and Saudi authorities, Saudi Crown Prince invited Eritrean president. Welcome to my views and news. Thanks for watching the channel. Two news stories. First one is about Isaias Afwerki's upcoming visit of Saudi Arabia. Secondly, Ethiopia says Ankara declaration is intact, that talks with Somalia will resume. Let's have a look at this story first about Ankara declaration. Last year, when Ethiopia-Somalia tensions were very high, the two were on the verge of war after Ethiopia signed a controversial MOU with Somaliland to gain sea access in return for recognition of Somaliland as a country. Turkey intervened. Turkey mediated talks between Ethiopia and Somalia. The two sides signed Ankara declaration that de-escalated bilateral tensions. Somalia had cut off diplomatic ties with Ethiopia, but after Ankara declaration, diplomatic ties were restored, and under the auspices of Turkey, Ethiopia, and Somalia started negotiations. Within a few months, they were due to sign some agreements about access to sea, about respecting each other's territorial sovereignty and integrity. First round of discussions was held. First round of technical talks was held between the two countries, Ethiopia and Somalia. Second round could not be held. And then it was widely believed that the process of talks had collapsed because no progress had been made. But Ethiopian ambassador to Turkey claimed this week that Ankara declaration is still intact. He said, yes, talks with Somalia will resume. There is no other option, no other choice but negotiations. Talks will resume. He did not announce the schedule of the second round of technical talks. When will the two countries meet again? Did not disclose that. But he appreciated Erdogan, Turkish president. He said Turkey played a key role in de-escalating bilateral tensions between Ethiopia and Somalia, and that soon the two sides will resume talks. Well, when the two sides met the first time a few months ago, reportedly Ethiopian demands were very tall demands. Ethiopia wanted to establish a military base, a naval base on Somalia's coast. Somalia did not agree to that. Somalia offered Hobyo port and Mogadishu port to Ethiopia, but Somalia did not agree to deployment of Ethiopian naval forces on Somalia's coast. So talks could not make progress. When will the second round begin? We don't know, but the ambassador claims that the talks will resume. Now back to the main news story, viewers. Saudi Crown Prince has invited Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. When will Eritrean President visit, and what is the agenda of this visit? Two related developments. Firstly, then if you analyze these developments, it will be easy for you to understand why Mohammed bin Salman is inviting Isas Afwerki. First, we know that Saudi Arabia is mediating between Ethiopia and Eritrea. The two sides have held talks. Ethiopia and Eritrea sent delegations to Saudi Arabia, but the two held talks. The talks are about access to sea. Ethiopia wants access to a support. Eritrea refusing to talk to Ethiopia. Ethiopia ready to share profits of its profitable entities with Eritrea. But Eritrea has not been showing any flexibility. Military buildup being noticed on Eritrea-Ethiopia border. Reportedly, Eritrea requested Saudi rulers to mediate between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Why? Because Eritrea wants Saudis to be on its side as UAE is on Ethiopian side. Talks held, but no confirmation of any progress made. Then Sisi went to Saudi Arabia. This week, Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, Egyptian president, visited Saudi Arabia. He met with Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, and Sisi and Mohammed bin Salman discussed several key issues. They discussed Palestine, obviously. They talked about need for ceasefire in Gaza and the issue of rebuilding of Gaza and settlement of the people of Gaza. Secondly, they talked about Red Sea security, where Houthis fire at ships, commercial ships. And Sisi obviously raised the issue of GERD too. That GERD is a threat to Egyptian existence. And Sisi raised the issue of access to sea, which is being pressed by the Ethiopian side. Sisi knows that Saudis can play a role. If Saudis put pressure on Ethiopia, maybe Ethiopia will agree to talk to Egypt. Egypt and Ethiopia have held several rounds of talks about GERD, the dam built in Benishangul Gumuz region of Ethiopia, going to be inaugurated next month. Egypt wants a legally binding agreement about dam operations. Ethiopia not willing to sign any such agreement. Egypt contacting all the regional global players so that they could force Ethiopia to come to the table to sign the agreement. So that is why Sisi requested Mohammed bin Salman to use his influence to find a solution to Ethiopia, Egypt deadlock over GERD. Mohammed bin Salman is inviting Isas Afwerki. If Isaias, by the way, shows some flexibility and he agrees to share a port with Ethiopia. Ethiopia could show some flexibility and involve in talks with Egypt to sign a binding agreement with Egypt. It could happen. I'm not saying it will happen or progress has been made, but it could happen. Secondly, if Ethiopia is not willing to show any concessions towards Egypt, Eritrea, Saudi Arabia, Egypt could join hands to put more pressure on Ethiopia. So Saudi Arabia is a player. Especially when it comes to the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia is definitely a player. Egypt is trying to involve Saudis on its side, but Egypt has GERD in its mind. It wants a legally binding agreement about GERD. And it wants to stop Ethiopia from reaching the sea. Though, if Ethiopia agrees to sign a legally binding agreement with Egypt, Egypt might support Ethiopian case for sea access. Each country has its own interest to protect. Eritrea could be in a very difficult position, I think, in coming days. It will be under pressure from Saudis, from Egypt, from other sides, to give some concessions to Ethiopia, which Eritrean president will not agree to. Let's see what happens. After Egyptian president's conclusion of visit to Saudi Arabia, now Savuk is going to visit Saudi Arabia. By the way, Eritrean government sent a delegation led by Jimene Gabriel after Sisi departed Saudi Arabia. Jimene Gabriel led Eritrean delegation landed in Saudi Arabia. It held talks with Saudi rulers, but Saudi crown prince asked the delegation that the talk should be held between Saudi ruler and the Eritrean presidents. Invitation has been extended. In coming days, we could see Savuki visit Saudi Arabia, but if he knows that he could be in trouble if he visits Saudi Arabia, and he could face immense pressure from Mohammed bin Salman, he might postpone the visit. Let's see. Coming days crucial. Thank you for watching.